Yes, Pretzel Man 945 here. Welcome back to another video. Um, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about a game that I just finished a few minutes ago, actually. And it's a smaller game that I've been playing for the past couple weeks. Cause I'm gonna make my metaphor video actually. Let's see. Metaphor was April 19th, so it's been a few weeks since I finished that game. And in the meantime I was playing a smaller game called Star Wars The Force Unleashed because I need something much smaller to play after such a big JRPG like Metaphor. And um I would say the overall summary of The Force Unleashed is that it's a pretty fun but extremely clunky game. Like, oh man, the clunk is so bad. The clunk is really there. Um, so to start with the positives, because I do have quite a few positives. I think that where's my arm still? Um, I think that the whole idea of like playing as a Sith and like the amazing like customizability of your powers and such like that, and just um being able to go around fighting as a Sith. You unlock these new powers like Force Lightning and the ability to just become more and more powerful as this like Force user character. I think that the way that that feels and that kind of immersion is very, very cool. Um, I also, in general, aside from some clunky aspects, which I'll get to later regarding the targeting and such, I do like the combat. I think for the most part it feels pretty smooth. Um, and I also really, really like the kind of variety of worlds that you visit in the game because even though like the same three planets end up being repeated between Kashyyyk, Raxus Prime, and Felucia, the way that you explore those planets both times is completely different, and I think that that is really cool. And I think it adds a lot of very nice variety to the kind of locales that you explore and the kind of enemies that you fight. Um, and the whole like story is cool. Like I think the whole idea of Darth Vader having an apprentice is cool. Um, Although to be honest, this is kind of where I need to get into the negatives because unfortunately I do feel like I have more negatives than positives when talking about this game. Just because there are certain aspects of it that were just so clunky and so hard to play. I will say, as another positive, graphically, this game, for being a 15-year-old game, looks quite good, considering the time period that it came out in. Um, However, going back to the story and character thing, this is much, much less of a minor thing, and it's much more of a nitpick, but I do think it's worth a mention because it is kind of like a central focus of the story in that maybe this isn't really supposed to be the point, but I don't feel like Star Killer's like um turn to the light side is very believable. It kind of just feels like it happens for the sake of plot convenience, which, like I said, that's not a huge deal, but it is just something to point out because it is the point of his character in the story, and that fact at the end where like that bright spot that General Murta sensed was like that pilot that he apparently fell in love with, even though they only had like one romantic scene together. Like, oh, that was so cringy. It just made me laugh though, more than anything. Laugh and cringe. Um, so that's not like a great thing, but it's also like not. Probably much more of a nitpick to me. Um, the biggest issue with the game, by far, in my opinion, is the camera. Holy hell, the camera is fucking awful in this game. Um, it, it is very slow and it doesn't seem to very naturally like gravitate toward very unique gameplay encounters, and it often like is very zoomed in, and it's hard to tell what's going on by looking in front of you, and it's hard to angle. And then for some reason, and I do not understand this. I find this decision so baffling, but like for some reason in all the major boss fights that you're in, the camera is like locked to just the horizontal plane, which makes it so much harder to see like how bosses are trying to attack you and and like where they're going to be coming from. And it's it's horrible. The camera is absolutely awful. Might be like one of the worst like cameras I've seen in any video game. It was just awful. Um, that I would say that was a big reason as to the clunkiness behind it. Um, but there was also like a ton of little things as well, like the fact that I feel like the button inputs, I feel like need to be given more time to kind of like show up because there were several times where I was trying to uh where I was doing a combo, I was almost like whittling a boss down to its last bit of health, and then like basically every boss in this game finishes with like a button input combo, and I would often like mess it up a few times because I was still doing my combo of attacks, and then I wouldn't register that the first of those of that like input combo would happen, or I would like accidentally press the first button while I was doing my first combo, and then I would miss a second one. Which that one is a really minor nitpick. But it's just a little thing that I do wish would maybe save me some time at certain points. A bigger thing that I had an issue with is the targeting system because, um, for some reason, like, and maybe this is just me being too used to playing modern games with these kind of conveniences, but um it had like this weird thing where you could only target enemies that the character could see directly in front of you. So even if the camera was pointed at them, if you were faced backward, then your attacks would not hit them, which at several points was just really annoying, and I feel like led to more difficulties in the combat um than I would have liked. And there were also several like individual kind of one-off mechanics in this game. This game loved to do these like one-off individual mechanics. Which in concept, all of which were extremely cool, but a lot of them had very poor execution. And the biggest example that I look for this is the whole thing that happens when you're on Imperial Raxus Prime and you need to bring the Star Destroyer out of the sky. And I think the idea behind this is absolutely awesome and it does feel very cool to do. But the problem is, like I could get behind the button thing. It's very specific, but I could get used to it. But the problem is the fact that they have continuous rounds of TIE fighters attacking during that scene. And I'm just like, why? Because the button inputs are extremely specific and you need to get them all at once or you're barely going to be making any progress. Like, what should have happened is like one, maybe two rounds of TIE fighters, and the second one, and if there was a second one, it would be a lot more spaced out, in my opinion, because as it happens now, it's like you get into a groove of doing the right inputs, and then you have to stop because otherwise, then the TIE fighters are going to take away all your health, and you have to go deal with the TIE fighters. And while you're doing that, the progress that you made with bringing down the Star Destroyer slowly resets itself. Um, and that's just one of many examples of like these one-off gameplay things that I can think of. Um, uh, because I think, like I said, I think a lot of them work great in concept, but they just needed a lot a little to a lot like editing of the base idea in order to make it more fun and a feasible gameplay mechanic, I think. Um, Now, I will go back on some other positives here. But I do really like all the variety of enemies you fight here. Uh I think there are certain ones that are definitely very annoying. Like, you fight enough ATSTs and Royal Guard people and they do become slightly annoying after a while. But in general, I felt like except for one kind of enemy, the enemy variety was very good and it was like a nice mix of different mechanics, especially late into the game that you had to kind of juggle in between with regards to combat. The one enemy type that I'm referring to is Purge Troopers. Fuck Purge Troopers. I hope the Purge Troopers go and die in hell. Because that's what it was like to actually fight them. Fighting the stupid Purge Troopers was actual hell. They were so freaking annoying, especially if there was more than one of them. Um, um, and also just one final little nitpick. I really wish there was a dodge button in this game. Because as it stands, the only real way to dodge, without getting constantly attack hit stunned is to just kind of jump all over the place like a fucking maniac. And yes, there is the dash, but it doesn't really function as a dodge button in the same way that like a dodge button in like The Witcher 3 works, for example, or like Final Fantasy VII Remake slash Rebirth. Um, and I think if it had one of those, it would have made um, combat a lot more easier to play. So overall, I know that that was a lot of negatives that I did pile onto the game, but I genuinely did have a lot of fun with it. I think I would give the game overall, with its problems, a solid 7 to 7.5 out of 10. I did have a good time with it, but there were a lot of clunky mechanics that kind of actually reared up toward the end of the game, which did lessen my enjoyment as I went throughout. But yeah, overall, I did enjoy the game. And if you are kind of craving some more side content that isn't a part of the movies, then I think that this game does offer a quite unique and fun experience. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.